Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat basketball channel. The Miami Heat are officially back. We are the best team, not only in the East, but in the entire NBA. Let's freaking go. Huge win from the Miami Heat. Another clutch performance by Jimmy, aka Himmy Buckets. What a fun game, a stressful game. Per usual, the Heat have found themselves in a close game with the Los Angeles Clippers at home in the fourth quarter. The Heat are the number one team in the NBA in terms of clutch games. So they have been in 17 total clutch games, which means the score is within 5 points in the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter overtime. And so they're actually been fairly good in those scenarios, and it's just super stressful as a Miami Heat fan that every game comes down to the wire. So it's quite frankly torturous and quite annoying. But as long as they pull it off, we're all good. So the Miami Heat were able to pull this game out of their ass, apparently. So the Heat, I thought they were going to blow this game. It felt like it was going to be a loss. The Heat and the Clippers were both shorthanded. Kawhi Leonard had missed his 20th game out of 27 games this season. So the Clippers were on a back-to-back. They lost to the Orlando Magic the night before in overtime. So Kawhi was out, as well as a few other players. And for the Miami Heat, Kyle Lowry missed his first game of the season, which is quite surprising. We also were missing Gabe Vincent and a few others ourselves. But overall, Clippers started off pretty well. They had a 11-point lead in the first quarter. They ended the first quarter up by 8. So the Heat were kind of struggling with their shot. Second quarter, the Heat went on a 13-0 run to take the lead, and were plus 10 in that quarter. And Caleb Martin played phenomenal in that quarter. He actually had 16 points in that quarter alone. He had 17 overall in the game, but I believe he was 4 for 5 from 3 in that quarter. So he provided a much needed boost for the Heat, who were, again, missing their 2 point guards. So big performance by Caleb Martin, which was wonderful to see. And it was a great team effort overall for the Heat. So the game was pretty close throughout the second half. The Heat were up by 2 going into halftime. Going into the fourth, the Heat were down by 3. So again, really close game, which is a typical experience for the Miami Heat this season. But the Heat had 2 extremely strong performances. One by Bam Adebayo, who's continuing to be aggressive, minus the game he had against the Pistons in that loss. But Bam was spectacular, super aggressive, had 31 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 14 from 21 from the field. So he played phenomenal, made some really good plays out of the post. His mid-range shot has been improving. So wonderful to see Bam elevate his offensive game, because we all know that Bam is a spectacular defensive player. So Bam is becoming one of the best two-way players in the NBA, which is awesome and what the Heat need. Jimmy Butler, God, it was good to have him back. So anytime Jimmy's out, this team looks like trash, honestly. He makes us look so much better offensively. I think we're ranked 27th in the NBA in points. So missing Jimmy is huge. When we miss him, we're missing on a 21 point per game scorer and our captain. So Jimmy crushed it last night. 26 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and 4 steals. He was 10 for 12 in the game. He literally did not miss any shots in the second half. And he had some huge clutch shots in the fourth quarter to help seal the Miami Heat victory. So all in all, happy about the team's performance. Hero had 19 points, 9 rebounds, so he contributed as well. Not too much from the bench. Only 4 players on the bench played. So Strus, he's still been pretty shaky. He had 8 points, 2 for 7 from 3. Victor Oladipo still looks pretty rusty. This was his second game back. Victor played 21 minutes. He had 6 points, couple rebounds, couple assists, 3 from 8 from the field, which isn't wonderful. But he had 2 really great mid-range shots in that fourth quarter. So it was nice to see Vic contributing off the bench, and he hasn't played in a long time, so he's definitely rusty, getting back up to NBA speed and conditioning, and so I think he'll be a factor off the bench. I'm not sure if he can completely replace Tyler Hero in that sixth-man role and be quite as effective from an offensive perspective, but we already know what he brings on the defensive end, and he looks healthy, right? He just needs to shake off the rest. So excited for this victory. I don't know how optimistic I am in terms of the Heat getting fully back on track and becoming contenders again to make it to the finals from the Eastern Conference. And so it's just tough because I know we had a few players out, but the Clippers were missing their best player, Kawhi, who basically hasn't really played at all this season. But still, just everything had to go right in order for the Heat to win this game. And we were, again, down by double digits at home. Defense stepped up when it needed to, but Clippers did really well. 46% from the field, 47 they were from 3. They were 17 from 36. I think that's what really kept them in the game. Paul George, Reggie Jackson hit some big three-pointers. Free throws as well. They shot 90%, 19 for 21. Heat were only 11 for 14. The big key, I think, though, was turnovers. The Heat had 8 to the Clippers 16. Rebounds typically were horrible at that, and we're undersized, and obviously we need a 4. But we were tied across the board with the Clips, 43 rebounds, 7 offensive each. So we were able to pull this out, and it was a gutty victory. It was a much-needed victory. The Heat are still 12 and 14, 2 games out of 2 games under 500, and they're still in the 9th seed. So they did move up 1 seed, and they're still a few games back from being the top 4 seed. So I guess it's still early, right? I know the litmus test says that, after 20 games, typically that's a good barometer to understand how good a team is going to be and to evaluate what that team is going to look like moving forward. And so who knows? I don't know. I'm optimistic and pessimistic, honestly. But I think I'm leaning more towards optimism. If Bam can continue to play this aggressive on the offensive end, if Jimmy Butler can be this efficient, and if Kyle Lowry comes back, I think he was just resting. He's been a little more effective than last year, which is quite surprising because he's going to be turning 37 in March. So as long as Tyler Hero continues to be the same, averaging the same amount of points as a starter this year than he did last year on the bench, and if Victor Oladipo can get back up to speed and lead our bench, and if, again, there's a lot of ifs, Max Strus and Gabe Vincent can, get that consistency back, become 3-point threats. I don't even want to mention Duncan Robinson, but I think this Heat team has a chance. I don't know if I want to say to be contenders again, but they can be like a 4 to 6 range. I initially, in the last video, said I think the Heat are going to be like in that 6 to 8 range. But if they continue to play like this, pull out the victories and win against pretty decent teams, Clippers are pretty decent. A lot of people had them winning the West, right, before the season. So as long as we could beat these teams, take care of business against the crappy teams, and not lose to the freaking Pistons, then I'll be optimistic that the Heat could be in that 4 to 6 range for now. So anyway, thanks so much for watching the video. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to like this video and comment on the video, and let me know if you have any feedback for future videos. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks again. Take care.